Good evening and welcome to the City of Murfreesboro Planning Commission meeting for May 6, 2020. In accordance with Executive Order Number 16 issued by Governor Bill Lee, the Murfreesboro Planning Commission May 6, 2020 meeting will be conducted electronically and there will not be physical public access to the meeting as necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. The public may view the meetings electronically through Murfreesboro City TV, which is broadcast on Comcast Xfinity Channels 3 and 1094, and on AT&T Murfreesboro City TV, which is broadcast on Comcast UVerse Channel 99. That was AT&T UVerse Channel 99. The meeting can also be streamed on Roku, YouTube, Facebook, and the city's website. So we'll call the meeting to order and ask Ms. Jaco to take roll call so we can have a vote to have our meeting electronically. Ms. Jaco?
She is. Ms. Jaco, we're waiting for a roll call, if you're with us.
Madam Chair, Ms. Jaco may be having difficulty with her audio. I could go ahead and do the roll call for a determination of a quorum. Ms. Garland?
Aye.
Mr. Halliburton?
Aye.
Mr. Salas?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Present.
Mr. Barton?
Aye.
And Madam Chair?
Aye. So we're all here. We do have a quorum, and we will go through the roll call again for a vote to hold our meeting electronically. Do we need to ask for a motion for that, or do I just?
Yes, ma'am. We'll need a motion and a second for that.
So moved. Second, Ken Halliburton.
We have a motion and a second to hold our meeting electronically. So Mr. Blomley, if you don't mind taking the roll call again.
Mr. Blomley, I am on if you want me to take it from here.
Hello, Ms. Jaco. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Technical, Carolyn.
That's all right.
Appreciate it. Miss Garland?
Aye.
Mr. Halliburton?
Aye.
Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin? Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Silas?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. So vote passes to hold our meeting electronically. So our first item of business is to approve our minutes of our April 22nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. So once again, we will need a motion and a second on the minutes unless anyone has any changes, additions, corrections to the minutes.
This is Eddie Smotherman. I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, if you can call roll.
Miss Garland?
Aye.
Mr. Halliburton?
Aye.
Mr. Martin? Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Silas?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Motion passes to approve the minutes. And our public hearings tonight, we're just going to have one public hearing tonight. This is a zoning application to amend the West Lawn PUD to allow hospital as a permitted use within the area identified as C4 within the program book on approximately 10.5 acres located along Veterans Parkway. St. Thomas Rutherford is the applicant. Ms. Green.
Thank you. Good evening, Mrs. Jones and Planning Commission members. Our first and only public hearing this evening is for you to consider a requested amendment to existing PUD planned unit district for property that's located along Veterans Parkway, along Interstate 840 and Shores Road. You can see the overall PUD, which is called West Lawn, on the map before you. It's the area shaded purple. Within this area shaded purple, you can see a hatched area, and the hatched area is a subsection of the overall West Lawn PUD. In just a moment, I'd like to discuss that. This property, as I mentioned, is located along the southern border of Interstate 840. To the south are the unincorporated area of Rutherford County, and it's developed mostly as exurban or suburban residential. The surrounding development is mostly zoned PUD and is a part of the West Lawn development. What fronts along Veterans Parkway is commercial in nature. What is near the interchange of Veterans Parkway and 840 is multifamily residential, and single family detached residential is currently already developed and under development within the project, as you can see. This property was zoned PUD in 2007. There have been subsequent zoning amendments since that time. The most recent one that affects the sub area that we're discussing tonight was done in 2018. The hatched area in 2018 was requested to be divided into two areas called C4 and C5. And a part of the area C4 faces Veterans Parkway and C5 is along Shores Road. With that amendment in 2018, there was a significant buffer added along Shores Road to help buffer the commercial uses that were proposed here from the existing suburban and exurban residential uses along Shores Road. Before the amendment in 2018, this was zoned to allow multifamily development. And so the Planning Commission City Council did decide that a better use for this property was commercial zoning. You have before you an application from Southeast Ministries, which is St. Thomas Rutherford, who has a contract to purchase a portion of this property. The area along Veterans Parkway has a list of permitted uses outlined in the program book, and that list does not include hospital as a permitted use. However, C5, area C5 closest to Shores Road does include hospital as a permitted use. And the team for this project approached me interested in a facility in this area. And my advice was that they amend the plan development and add hospital as a permitted use in C4, even though it's already a permitted use in C5. And so before you today is a request to amend C4, which is a approximately 10.5 acre portion of this property. The overall West Lawn development is just over 206 acres. Areas C4 and C5 are 19.6. And then the area which is proposing to add the use hospital is 10.5 acres. And so the changes that you have are in the program book, which I've provided in the packet. And the changes include changing the applicant from Parks Harney, who is the current owner, to Southeast Ministries. The introduction in the program book on page 4 has been updated to explain the additional permitted uses. The overview page on page 15 has been revised so that hospital is listed as an example permitted use. And then pages 40, 41 have been revised to add hospital as a permitted use in the C4 district. As I mentioned, it's already permitted in the C5 district. There are several members of the applicant's team on our meeting tonight who wish to address you and address this proposed request. I'll introduce Mr. Jeff Reed and Mr. Gordon Ferguson to introduce this application to you. And if there are additional people they'd like to speak, if you don't mind, go ahead and introducing and saying your name as well. And if you have any questions regarding this project, I'll be glad to answer them either before or after the public hearing. And Mr. Reed?
Yes, thank you so much.
welcome.
Appreciate everyone listening to us tonight. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to David Hendrickson with Reagan Smith. He has a brief presentation for you guys to look at tonight. Really, this is a fairly simple request we think we're making tonight to add the hospital as a permitted use to C4, which is already allowed in C5. So with that, Mr. Hendrickson, can you address your presentation?
Yes, thank you, Jeff, and thank you everyone here tonight, taking time out of your day. If you could go to the next slide, this is just a brief project location, just to give an introduction and a reference. with 840 on the north side, veterans on the east side. And then I just like to note that the city limits line that's over on the east side has expanded west. This is a slightly dated map, but just to give you a little bit of a reference geographically where this site is. Next slide, please. So this is the overall master plan. You can see on the bottom right-hand corner is the C4, C5 area, with the C4 being the one that we are requesting to add hospital as a permitted use. This is an enlargement which shows the current permitted uses on the list on the top left with hospital added to that. Nothing else on this plan has changed. No other permitted uses have been added or taken off, and the bulk regulations remain the same as well. This is just some example precedent images of what could potentially go there, just to give an idea of architectural features, materials that would be allowed. This is for everyone's reference as a C5 area, just to show what's permitted there now, bulk regulations currently, and there, as mentioned before, hospital is an approved use, and we're just seeking to add that to C4. This is just an enlargement if everybody make it easier to see what the permitted uses were for C5 and the nature of those uses. As mentioned before, the current proposed buffer and screening, which goes along the backside of C4 and a portion, or backside of C5 and a portion of C4, will remain with the residential areas on the south side of the previous Shores Road alignment. I open it up for questions, comments, and then as well, I know that Gordon Ferguson is on the call if you would like to make any additional comments or background on the project.
Yeah, thank you, David and Jeff, and thank you to the commission for making time for listening to our presentation this evening. Several years ago, we started discussions with our Ascension St. Thomas strategy team about the possibility of placing some additional access points as part of St. Thomas, both in Murfreesboro and throughout Rutherford County. We finished a new care facility on New Salem Highway and are getting ready to build a ambulatory surgery center adjacent to that building. More recently, we have had discussions again with our strategy team with St. Thomas about the need for an additional access point to care west of I-24 in the Blackman West Lawn area. And this is somewhat of an innovative approach in terms of building a micro hospital, or what we would really prefer calling a neighborhood hospital. This has been used successfully in Ascension in states including Texas, Indiana, and Wisconsin. This would be the first of its type in the state of Tennessee. And so we are working through some licensure issues, and this will require a certificate of need from the state. But in short, the facility that we're working with Gresham Smith to design would be a 32,000 square foot facility, 2 levels. It would include 8 inpatient beds and an emergency room that would have 8 treatment rooms within that area. It would also include imaging, up to and including CT scanning abilities, as well as lab services. So when I see the word hospital there, I just want to assure everybody that what we really are discussing here and what we think is a more innovative model, again, is this concept of a neighborhood hospital. The cost of the project is estimated to be $24.6 million. And I think what's neat about this is that this property adjacent to the one that we're talking about for the neighborhood hospital would also include proposed projects by TOA. Rob Simmons is present here as the CEO of TOA, where we're proposing to partner with TOA on a orthopedic focused ambulatory surgery center. And then also Murfreesboro Medical Clinic owns property in this same area. And we've had some discussions about opportunities of working together to make this somewhat of a medical destination point for residents living on the west side of I-24 in the Blackman area. Be glad to answer any questions, but that's just a very general overview of the proposed project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ferguson, and to the entire team. Are there questions from the Planning Commissioner staff for any of the team before we open a public hearing?
Ms. Jones,
Yes, Ms.
I don't
Garland.
have comments at the moment, but I will be abstaining from this vote.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McKnight, did we have any people register for this public hearing?
Madam Chair, we have Mr. John Harney wishing to speak during the public hearing portion.
Okay. If there are no other questions prior to opening the public hearing, then we will go ahead and open the public hearing and allow Mr. Harney to speak. Mr. Harney, welcome. Unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now? I just wanted to say that we are very pleased that St. Thomas is joining the other two, both TOA and Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, on this, so to speak, medical campus development that's happening on Veterans. We think it's a great addition and certainly support the rezoning to allow the hospital to use. So we are in full support of what they're doing, and I think it will be a great asset to Murfreesboro, and especially the west side of Murfreesboro, and the easy access to several other counties that can access via the 840 Veterans Parkway interchange.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harney.
Thank you.
Mr. McKnight, did we have any other members of the public registered?
Madam Chair, only the one.
Okay. If we have no one else to speak, we will close our public hearing and ask for any comments and questions from the Planning Commission.
Of course, we're all excited about the opportunity for and this quarter to develop, or continue to develop as a medical area, and its access to 840 and the ability for people from Lebanon to Franklin have easy access to this facility would be not only a phenomenal asset to Murfreesboro, but the entire community. So we're excited about it, and I echo everything Mr. Harney said in his presentation, because I do think it'll have a true impact on that part of our town.
Thank you, Mr. Smotherman. Any other comments or questions or discussion from the Planning Commission? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll be ready for a motion. Mr. Halliburton, did you have a?
No, I was just going to make a motion to approve the plan subject to all staff comments.
Thank you.
Second, this is Chase.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jaco, if you want to call the roll.
Ms. Garland.
Abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Halliburton.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Silas.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you, and thank you to the Entire team, we're excited about that. Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Reed, all of you all, thanks so much. Mr. Harney.
Thank
thanks
you, guys.
for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much on behalf of TOA.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Our next agenda item will be mandatory referrals, which we have 3 tonight. The first is a mandatory referral for installation of irrigation lines in public right-of-way in the Legacy Point development. Mr. Matt Taylor, on behalf of Rutherford County Area Habitat for Humanity, is the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Did want to just go ahead and make the announcement that the second public hearing on the agenda has been withdrawn by staff. That was the zoning ordinance amendment regarding section 26 of the zoning ordinance. We will be bringing that back to the Planning Commission at a later date, but we need to continue to fine tune some things in that ordinance amendment. And so just wanted to let the public know that that public hearing has been withdrawn by staff from tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
No problem. Our first mandatory referral tonight is a request by Mr. Matt Taylor, representing Rutherford County Habitat for Humanity, for a mandatory referral to allow irrigation lines within the public right-of-way. This is for the Legacy Point single-family residential development along Twin Oak Drive, which is currently under construction. They haven't actually recorded the plat for section 1, but it is under construction. This is a mandatory type of mandatory referral that we have allowed in the past with the Blackman Station development along the south side of Manson Pike. What Mr. Taylor is requesting is for, in this future right-of-way called Opportunity Lane, approval to locate an irrigation line within the right-of-way of Opportunity Lane, just to the east of Twin Oak Drive. As you can see, there is a proposed common area here with landscaping, and there is a proposed common area here flanking both sides of Opportunity Lane. Both of those common areas will need to be irrigated to allow that landscaping to survive. Mr. Ives has been working with Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Ives has been working with Mr. Taylor on a license agreement to allow that irrigation line within the public right-of-way. Be happy to answer any questions about this request. It is consistent with past requests that we have taken to the Planning Commission for similar situations. Mr. Matt Taylor is here if you have any questions for him, representing the application. And Mr. David Ives, our Deputy City Attorney who has drafted the license agreement, is here if you have any questions for him as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blomley. Mr. Taylor, did you have anything else to add, or?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments from the Planning Commission? And if not, we'll need a motion.
If there are no comments, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Salas.
This is Ronnie. I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jacob, you'll take the roll.
Ms. Garland,
Aye.
Mr. Halliburton,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Salas,
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Motion passes. Our next mandatory referral is to consider the dedication of a CUD waterline easement and a temporary construction easement on city-owned property located along the south side of Burnt Knob Road. Mr. Matt Taylor, on behalf of North Boulevard Church of Christ, is the applicant. Ms. Rush. Ms. Rush, are you there?
I apologize. I think I was on mute still. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you. The Planning Commission is being asked to consider approving dedication of a consolidated utility district water line easement, as well as a construction easement on city-owned property that's located on the south side of Burnt Knob Road. In addition, the city is also proposing to dedicate right-of-way in between the water line easement that's requested and the existing right-of-way boundary in order to accommodate future improvements to Burnt Knob Road, consistent with the Murfreesboro 2040 Major Transportation Plan. The purpose of the request is because the North Boulevard Church of Christ is constructing a new campus on the north side of Burnt Knob Road in the unincorporated county and needs a water line extension to provide adequate fire protection to its buildings. The easements are proposed and will be recorded through a document with a description and exhibit that will dedicate the easements to CD. The additional right-of-way dedication will be recorded in a separate document and is not part of the mandatory referral request. No public hearing is needed for the requested easement dedication, and staff is asking the Planning Commission to consider this request and formulate a recommendation to the City Council. Matt Taylor is representing the church and is here and available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rush. Mr. Taylor, anything to add tonight to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then questions and comments from the Planning Commission. Mr.
If
Halliburton.
there are none, I'll make a motion. We approve subject to all staff comments.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Russell. Ms. Jaco?
Ms. Garland,
Aye.
Mr. Halliburton,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Silas,
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for joining us tonight. And so we will move on now to our third mandatory referral. This is to consider the abandonment of an existing MWRD sanitary sewer easement located within the West Lawn subdivision along Veterans Parkway. Mr. Christopher Mabry, on behalf of MAB Murfreesboro LAC, is the applicant. Ms. Green, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This final mandatory referral is for you to consider the abandonment of an existing sanitary sewer easement, and it's made at the request of MAB Murfreesboro LLC, which is an organization that submitted site plans to you several months ago to develop a grocery store within the West Lawn development. And previously, I just discussed a zoning change in the West Lawn development. And this is just a little further to the north of the area you studied for rezoning. As I mentioned, it was for a grocery store who's still unnamed and several commercial out parcels along West Lawn, along Veterans Parkway. They have found a recorded easement that they would like to not just abandon, but to abandon and relocate. So the city would be gaining an easement in an area where it would serve the development more. This project did go to the Murfreesboro Water Resources Board and was recommended for approval at its April 28th meeting. So this does have a favorable recommendation. After you take action today, it will be required to go to the Murfreesboro City Council as well for final determination. The staff is in support of this change, particularly since the Water Resource Board has reviewed it and thinks that it is a good idea. We do ask that if the mandatory referral is approved, that you make it subject to the applicant providing all the necessary documentation required to prepare and record instrument to the city. This may include legal descriptions and illustrations of the property. If approved by the City Council, then the mayor will be authorized to sign the necessary documents to convey the city's interest in this easement back to the owner. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. We also have Christopher Mabry online who can represent the application if you have questions from him. I think due to it being small, we don't have a presentation, but you should make a recommendation to City Council regarding the abandonment of this water or sanitary sewer easement.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. And Mr. Mabry, did you have anything you wanted to add tonight on that?
No, thank you. That was very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for being here. Do we have questions and comments from the Planning Commission? If there are none, we'll ask for a motion.
Move for approval, subject to any and all staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Smotherman.
Second. Ken Halliburton.
Thank you, Mr. Halliburton. Motion is second. Ms. Jacob?
Ms. Garland,
Aye.
Mr. Halliburton,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Silas,
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you all. All right, that concludes our mandatory referrals for this evening. We'll move into staff reports and other business. I haven't been told about any staff reports or other business that we might have tonight, but Mr. Ives, do you have any little surprises up your sleeve for us tonight?
I do not have any other business tonight. Thank you.
All right. Well, if there is no other business, then we will stand adjourned. Thank you all very much for being here.